Hey everyone, welcome back. Different kind of video today. It is why DC should hire me to run their stuff. I don't even need a title. Watch now. Let's talk about DC and what I'm doing about DC. I've talked about this before and I've been on the brink and they've suckered me in to stick around, but I have found a way to take care of the few subscribers I have. I am sticking through with DC and Lunar through Scott Snyder's has a world that he's put together and it's coming out at the end of the year. And I will stick around for that. And after that, I don't believe it's ongoing, so after that, I will no longer be buying DC books direct from Lunar, and they will not be on my weekly stands. I will only be purchasing for the few subscribers I have for DC. And here's the reason, right? So a lot of people think it's because they went woke and this, that, and the other thing. I could care less. Whether you have politics in your books or don't have politics in your books, I'm a big guy about how you market them and what you have behind them. I really feel that it was very tokenism, that they created these characters just because they needed to create these characters instead of really integrating them in the stories, flushing them out, making them feel like three-dimensional characters that had a lot more than just their sexuality. That's what makes a good story. DC, even the books that weren't quote-unquote woke, are not selling, they're not good, they're not well written. The art is always good. DC is always able to get good artists. People want to work there, they want to work on certain characters. But the stories, not everybody can write comics. Just because you write a novel doesn't mean you can write a comic. Just because you're a screenwriter doesn't mean you can write a comic. You have to be tried and tested, right? A lot of these people were getting, very quickly they were getting to lead a DC book with very little comic book background. When DC had Vertigo for years, it was the great place where guys could cut their teeth on monthly books that were ongoings, that didn't need to make money. But what they found was these guys were, not only were they cutting their teeth, but, and the woman's name escapes me who was running Vertigo, she was really good at finding talent. I mean, she was a fantastic, like they should just hire and make her head of new talent. Even if they don't give her an imprint, they probably can't afford her anymore because they're not paying anybody anything. The books are still not selling. So Absolute Power just came out. I bought the 25 bundle as a backup. I bought 5 issues. I sold 0. Nobody was interested. Nobody cared. If you look at the people who are running DC and you look at their Instagrams and you look at DC's Instagram, and their X, they mentioned it. There was no other marketing done for Absolute Power. It was not great. So I sold none of the 5 that I purchased at full price. And then we were able to purchase a bundle of 25, which I was hoping that it was going to be like Ultimate Spider-Man. Like people came in, first they read Ultimate Spider-Man and everybody went crazy, and there's second print, third print, fourth print, fifth print. I think they have 8 prints now at least. DC's Absolute Power, no excitement, 0 excitement. Nobody came in asking for that book. I had the 5 I purchased at full price, which is again, I only have 35% off, so I'm paying 65% of the cover price. You were able to buy the bundle at $1 a book, but you had to meet criteria. So I did that. I have the extra 25. I don't know what I'm going to do with those. Probably give them away to my subscribers as like a thank you. I don't know if that's a real thank you though when you give them something that's not great. But anyway, I digress. In this whole disgust with DC as being, and appropriately I'm wearing my Batman shirt, and Chip Zdarsky's doing a solid job on Batman, and I like the Batman, but it's just not selling. DC as a whole has no excitement. Marvel has created excitement, and I am a big DC fanboy for years, and Marvel has this year, starting at actually the end of last year, started the momentum and has created excitement for their brand and for their books. What that does is the books that everybody wants brings people in, and yes, they grab that book, but the B titles, the C titles, and the D titles, they all see a tick up when excitement is around the brand. Absolute Power is a total flop. They've had flop after flop. There's no recourse for this. Nobody is losing their job. I know a lot of editors have left DC, I think because, one, the pay is horrible. Two, I think they see the writing on the walls. They probably are going to get fired anyway. So here's my thing. Hire me. DC, I retire in 3 months. Come September, hire me. I don't care what my title is. I don't need a title because I'm amazing. We're going to remarket, rebrand, do real marketing, bring in advertising back in the books. We're going to make comics make money again. And yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, this little comic shop guy, his business limps along for 10 years, and I think I could turn around DC. What, you couldn't do worse. You really couldn't do worse. You have no ideas. You're not bringing in the right talent, except for maybe art. Now you've had the whole AI controversy, which is really sad because that guy, was one of the greats for a long time. The thing is that if you're not paying them enough, they need more work. They need more work. If their level of art is on a kind of level where they need to take a lot of time to make a piece, how are they going to do all that work where they can make an actual living? The only way is to cheat, right? So you're forcing them into this. I mean, Greg Land has done it, like guys had done this in the past, and I guess they say, well, Matina's been doing something like this for a long, long time with the, swiping pictures, then flipping them, and then doing his style over the top of other people's art. Again, if you're not paying them correctly, they need to cheat, right? Because they need to make a living. And when your living is just covers and not interiors, and you're not getting the page rate, you need to pump out a lot of those covers. And everybody wants to make more money, right? So is it ever enough? But some people, if they can be proud of and be happy with, a certain amount of money, if they get paid that, then they won't be unethical. And then if there's punishments for being unethical, where it looks like the DC took a very heavy hand on him, as far as like there's not going to be covers for maybe ever again. I know they've removed a bunch from the future. If the buy-in is there, the people are getting a living wage, you're having to cut back because you don't have the sales, right? So, and that people who love comics, and that's why the reason they've come to comics, want to work at Marvel and they want to work at DC, so you can keep paying them less, because there's always a kid at a comic convention with his portfolio, please hire me, I really want to work for Marvel and DC. When everybody knows the money's in intellectual property and independence. As the creator, you not only make the money for the book, you have that intellectual property forever. There's a very small percentage when you create a new character at DC that you get forever, and it's so tiny, it's inconsequential. And it seems like DC really tries to avoid using any of those characters and going back and using characters from the Golden Age, because they don't have to pay anybody, and the Silver Age. Look, high tide rises all boats. If your creators, your artists, and your writers are creating characters that are exciting and people want to buy the books, and they want to see them in cartoons, and they want to see them in live action, the percentage you're paying them is tiny compared to what you're making on the major percentage. If you're giving them 2%, that means you have 98%. Do you want 98% of a booming business or 98% of a dying business? You're making no sense. Your culture's completely corrupt. I respect Jim Lee as an artist. He's amazing. He's one of the guys who changed the game when he came in the 90s. He still produces amazing artwork. What is he doing as the president and the publisher? If you want a figurehead like the Queen of England or the King of England now, fine. But put somebody else in charge. I say it should be me, but there are a lot of guys that have been in comics for a lot of years that could help you turn it around. The 1 in 25s and 1 in 50s are glutting your books. So your regular A covers are sitting in bins and people are like, well, nobody likes this because I can get 20 copies of Batman number 141 because that shop bought 100 issues so they could get 2 1/50s. And now it devalues the book, the story. Yes, there's money to be made from the speculators, but not the future business of the readers. There's a place for the speculators in the game, yes. And there's ways to do that. I think the exclusive game is horrible. It should be fixed. What it should be done is there should be a limit. Like when you're putting out an exciting book and everybody who does exclusives want to do it exclusive and you're like, oh, that's great. We're going to add, 20 comic book shops want to do a 3,000 copy exclusive. That means 60,000 more copies. The book is in glut now. Like there's not that many people that want to read it. You want to increase your numbers? Make a book that people want to read. That is who's buying the book. Yes, when you put a first appearance in there, the speculators come and they might buy 5 or 10 copies. Not happening for you, DC, by the way. There's no speculators coming and buying your books. They have a certain amount of cash flow that they're turning and burning, and they're not doing it at DC. The 1/50s might sell for you for some shops. I think your numbers are way worse than people think they are. That you and Marvel want the comic shops to tell you what the sales are so you can know how many books are actually selling. You should know that because your customer is us. The thing is that as your brand keeps getting tarnished week after week, month after month, when my back bins are full of DC and people are like, well, nobody sees any value in this. When they see value in this, they come in and they're like, oh, listen, I was reading this story, I missed it, it came out last week. Do you have any of this left? No, sorry, it's sold out. That makes a subscriber for me, right? The comic shops really live on good subscribers. Now, there's a lot of bad subscribers. They come once every 3 months. When they leave you with months of books yeah, that happens. That's the price of doing this business. But to create them, books have to sell out. Your books aren't selling out. I'm warehousing your books. And I can't continue to afford to warehouse them because how I move them and get cash flow back is I do a big 50% off back issue sale. Well, if I'm only getting a 35% discount, I can't give a 50% discount to move the books because your books cost me 65%. So I'm losing 15% to carry DC. That needs to change. You need to bring in all of the, whether it's through a Zoom call, going around the country and sitting down and speaking with all the comic shops, meeting with new comic shop owners, and really getting down with your actual customer, the comic shop, and creating this kind of trust and creating really good content because your content is bad. I don't know where you're kind of getting your creators from. I have to give you kudos for bringing back Scott because at least I'm sure we'll have a bump in that because there's so many Scott Snyder collectors. And I know that his series, that little world that he's building is going to be excellent because he's going to make sure it's excellent. But I think a lot of your people are mailing it in. And the stories are not very exciting. They're very like day in the life. Every once in a while, a day in the life book can be really cool, but it's really cool when it's once in a while. We want to see Batman punch people. We don't want to see 25 issues of him dealing with his trauma. His trauma is why he is Batman. We don't need to go over it and psychoanalyze himself or if you cure him, then he's not Batman anymore, right? There's just so many things that DC could be doing. Some of the recent foilings that they did are amazing. There's a place for all this stuff. I just think they're doing it so wrong. They just need to bring in somebody to shake it up, do something different, not try to follow Marvel. Oh, Marvel's had some success with this, so let's do something like that. No, because you're trying to catch a trend. Make a trend. Go find some of these really great creators that have been making their own book. Bring them in for a nice stint, like 2 years. Like 2 years on a book is forever these days. A writer writing for 2 years is like a long time now. where back in the day, Claremont did 17 years on X-Men, right? He knew all the characters, all the history. That's another thing. Oh, I know I'm rambling so much. DC needs 5 continuity guys because the editors aren't doing it. They need 5 guys that know DC Comics inside and out, every character, what their history is, the history of their villains, the motivation. Like, it's constantly changing. Like, you have to reel in even really good writers. You have to reel them in. They come up with really good stories that don't fit certain characters. You have to be true to the history. That is your brand. Your brand is 1938, first superhero. And you just constantly piss all over it. There is so many things that you could be doing. You definitely should bring back the Vertigo brand. You could move some titles, like when they moved Swamp Thing into Vertigo. John Constantine. The Black Label is a failure. Stop making magazine-style books. Nobody wants them. The smallest niche group wants them. Everybody's like, oh, the art's so great, it's so big. No. Comic book people want a comic book. Make a comic book. End the Black Label, or make the Black Label your Vertigo brand, whatever. I mean, I don't understand the end of that. The last Joker movie was so great. I haven't heard what this one, whether people are liking this one or not. I don't think it's out yet with Lady Gaga. I follow the comics more than the movies, but that whole world should have had a Vertigo title or an Elseworld title. You could tell so many stories. People love that Joker, especially people who don't know the comic book Joker, right? People who went to the first movie and went, wow, the Joaquin Phoenix that he created that Joker is amazing. Well, you could run a whole Vertigo series on that. And that would be bought by people who don't usually come to comic shops. We need more people to come through the door. If you think that I'm your marketing firm, you're in trouble. If you think mom and pop comic shops, no matter how good we market our own store, that we can market your book above ourselves, you're in trouble. If you think the writer and the artist have the time to create marketing for your book, you're an idiot. This is insane. Yes, it's free. Oh, we've already paid them. So you paid them for the art and for the story, but for that, so they can keep their job, they need to hustle on Instagram and X and maybe even start a YouTube channel so they can market your book. Well, then you need to pay them a marketing fee on top of that. Like, there should be a kick in for that. You know, if you want them to, oh, when your #1 comes out, or we're gonna reboot it, and when you come to it, you have to be on 10 YouTube review channels, right? You have to go and interview on those. Pay them. Movie stars usually get paid to do the circuit when they're going around to Australia and Europe, when the movie goes around and they're meeting with all these press, doing a press junket. That's what these artists and writers are doing, but they're doing it for free. Why? Why? How come there isn't somebody at DC that's excited about these titles that they can't go on there? Like the head of talent, or the chief editor, or Jim Lee, or somebody to come, hey, this is coming out, and this is the characters that are going to be involved, and you won't believe the twist, and we have some of the greatest writers and some of the greatest artists. There's no excitement coming from anybody at DC. What do you expect? I'm getting crazy, because I am that DC fanboy forever. Like, my buddies were Marvel guys, and I'd always be like, DC's better. We've been around since '38. You're a Johnny-come-lately. You know, you ripped off so much of our stuff. Blah blah blah. Now, you know what? DC is becoming Sears. Sears would sell you a house through a catalog, deliver it on a train, and you could make your own house. They had the biggest catalog from the 1800s, and then they abandoned it when the internet came along, and they got Amazon. Now is the catalog for everybody. Sears was positioned for that. Sears got bought by Kmart. Kmart and Sears merged. How did that happen? Kmart actually was shrinking, but they owned all their properties, so they sold it. The real estate was worth a fortune. So they took that fortune and, like, as a company, you can't hold that cash. What are we going to do with it? Well, Sears is in trouble. We'll buy Sears. They couldn't turn Sears around. And Sears didn't own. They were always an anchor in a mall. They didn't own any of their property. So they had no assets other than their inventory and the Craftsman name. They had some names. They did have some intellectual property, which Craftsman sold out. You can still buy Craftsman. Yes, I don't know who bought them. One of the big brands bought them. I can't remember whether it's Lowe's, Home Depot, somebody like that bought them. But that's what's going to happen to DC. All you have is intellectual property. You moved away from the heart in New York. You moved out to LA, be the big movie thing. Leave the movie people out there. The movie thing is ruining comics. Separate them. Take the publishing, bring it back to New York. You don't have to be in Manhattan for that ridiculous price. Move up to Westchester. Hey, move up to Orange County. Hire me. I'm right in Orange County. I retire in 3 months. I'll run DC for you. No title. Just say Jerk Boy. You can call me Jerk Boy. I just want to bring DC back. And they have some of the greatest characters. They've told some of the greatest stories. And the people that have been in charge for the last 5 years are failing. I want to go back to Didio. Was at least, I wasn't a huge fan of his, but at least it was on track. It was on a track. He may not have been the easiest person for talent to deal with. He may not have gotten things to the finish line, like the 5G. They got rid of them before the 5G, and they screwed that whole thing. That was the end of it. Like, that was the death knell. They have just gone down since then. Since 5G didn't happen, they shrunk it. They changed it. They decided not to pass on the mantles. Some of them, mantles got passed on for a little bit. Some of them still have books. And then they went into the whole changing everybody's history to fit a new world, which is fine, to be more diverse. I get it. Comics should have been more diverse for a much longer time. To do it all at once, I've gone over it already. I mean, I don't want to keep beating the diversity thing to death, because some of my favorite characters are the diverse characters because they have more to overcome. There's more stakes for them. They become more interesting. Look, why do I love Rambo? Because they beat the crap out of Rambo. He's already down in his luck. He's a wanderer. He's homeless. He's lost all of his friends. Then the police harass him, and then they beat him. And then he comes back. When I watched wrestling when I was younger, Bob Backlund, wasn't fancy, but and he'd get his butt handed to him every match. He'd be on the ground, and then the fist would come up, and up would come, and he'd come back from the edge of death. That's my heroes, right? And that's why you love Batman. That's why you love so many of the heroes, and because they overcome. And diverse characters have even more to overcome. That's why they're interesting. But instead of leaning on that, they want to lean on who their boyfriend is going to be or who their girlfriend is going to be. That's not interesting. That's not interesting until the character is flushed out and is a whole person. And then you're interested in their whole life, right? That's why Spider-Man never stays married. Batman didn't get married in the end. Superman did get married, and it goes back and forth. The Ultimate Universe now married off Spider-Man, and he's married with 2 kids. But they're not. That's not going to. That'll end, because it has to. You can't do both. You can't manage a family and give your life to the whole rest of the world. The stakes are too high. The possibility of them ending up being collateral damage. They've lost their way terribly. I don't think they have very good storytellers. I don't think when they do have a good storyteller that they have the right editors handling continuity. They shouldn't have, editors shouldn't have story ideas. That's not your job. If you hire somebody to do an event who is sort of an editor over the event, because you're doing it across multiple books and they're running the continuity of that event, yes, then they have to have story ideas because it has to tie in to the event. This Blood Hunt book so far has been very well tied together. I haven't read every single book, but the reviews I've been getting from my customers is that it ties in very well together. No book seems to be an outlier. And for a very weak premise, I think they've really killed it. The Red Band, what a great idea. This is the first book from either Marvel or DC that I've been selling 10 or more copies of every single month. It's amazing. It's why the last video I made about the state of comics, how great it was that these are selling out, these books are selling off the shelf. And the quality of the read is better and better in each new Marvel title. I don't know, I don't think they've changed anybody at the top. I don't know who decided that, hey, maybe good stories will work, but they are. They're really working. So DC, take a clue. I mean, I'm really hopeful for the Scott Snyder. I know it's going to be a great book. I just don't know if you're going to market it well. I'll just put it out there. If you didn't notice, I said several times you should hire me. I retire from my regular job in 3 months. You really have to reinvent yourself as the leader in comics and the inventor of the superhero book. I can't say anything else other than keep reading comics.